So, America has done something genuinely extraordinary this week. A federal court has overruled the FDA, the body that exists specifically to make scientific decisions about drugs, on the basis that it made a scientific decision about a drug. Let's get into it. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has blocked Mifepristone from being prescribed via telemedicine or sent by mail. Mifepristone, which if you haven't heard of it, is better known as the abortion pill. It is generally only advised for use up to week 10 of pregnancy and is not available without a doctor's assessment and prescription in the US or the UK. Approved in the year 2000, it's almost as old as a young millennial, which is all the more reason why it should be taken in the home, because that's where they all still live. Since then, it has been used safely by over 7.5 million American women with a mortality rate of less than 0.001%, which, to put that in perspective, is lower than the risk of Viagra. Or giving birth, which has a mortality rate in the U.S. of 0.018%. Although in states with total or near-total abortion bans, a report by the Gender Equity Policy Institute highlights that women are twice as likely to die during pregnancy, childbirth, or the postpartum period compared to states with protective laws. The court's reasoning is essentially, we don't trust the FDA's science, which is odd because the FDA's science is what you use when you don't trust someone's opinion. That's the entire point of having an FDA. Now, how did we get here? Well, Louisiana sued the FDA in October last year, arguing that allowing abortion pills to be mailed into the state was undermining Louisiana's abortion ban. Oh my God, I feel so undermined right now. Like, I made a decision about what the bridesmaids should wear, and the bridesmaids said, we don't like that. That's like an ugly decision. And now I feel undermined, but this is my state, and this is my law. Which, yeah. That's what it's doing. That's what access to legal medication does. It provides access to legal medication. But the court agreed with Louisiana. It wrote that every abortion facilitated by FDA's action cancels Louisiana's ban. Yeah, it does. So does every natural miscarriage too. Are you gonna ban God? Now, what made this possible is that Trump's Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote a letter last September conceding that the Biden-era rules had procedural deficits. Did they? Not the point. The letter exists. And the Fifth Circuit quoted that letter back to the government like a teenager quoting their best friend's mom who used to live in a cult and thinks raw milk is genuinely better than pasteurized. But Sam's mom says that it's not okay. Yeah, well, but Sam's mom also has a completely avoidable prolapse colon. Now, the safety case against Mifepristone rests substantially on a study by the Ethics and Public Policy Center, which is exactly who I go to every time I want a safely conducted scientific study done. Which is not a medical body. It is an explicitly ideological think tank that describes its mission as pushing back against what it calls the extreme progressive agenda. Their study was not peer-reviewed. The data source was not disclosed. Journalists who asked for the data were directed to a communications spokesman. Johns Hopkins Kaiser Family Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization focusing on national health policy, polling, and journalism, and the Guttmacher Institute, a research and policy organization dedicated to sexual and reproductive health and rights, all dispute the findings. But crucially, and this is where it gets architecturally weird, Trump's FDA is simultaneously conducting its own safety review of Mifepristone. It is marking its own homework, which it cannot say when it will be complete because it is still collecting data. Well, how are you going to do that if you keep restricting women from using it? So the same administration that told the court the old rules were procedurally deficient has not yet produced the evidence to justify new ones on a drug currently used in 63% of all American abortions. So what happens now? The case goes to the Supreme Court, which in 2024, by the way, unanimously preserved access to Mifepristone, not because, though, they agreed with the FDA. It was a ruling turned on standing. The previous plaintiffs were individual anti-abortion doctors who wanted to limit access to the drug, but couldn't prove that women using it caused them any personal harm. This time, the plaintiff is Louisiana, a state, and states have different standing because they can argue sovereign and financial harms because the mail-order abortion pill bypasses its state-level ban on abortion. So, The 2024 ruling doesn't protect this one. So while we wait for the case to be determined by SCOTUS, the in-person requirement is already back in effect nationwide, meaning you can't get access to it unless you have an in-person appointment, not over the phone, including in California, including in New York, 2 states with no problem with the idea of women controlling their own bodies and having medical autonomy over the contents of their mailboxes. The 91,000 people who accessed telehealth abortion last year in states with total bans, that route is now blocked. The states operating under shield laws, mailing pills across state lines, that route is now contested. The people this affects most are, as ever, those with the least capacity to travel, rural communities, people on low incomes, disabled people, and survivors of intimate partner violence. The ruling was made possible because Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a man who has questioned vaccines, fluoride, antidepressants, and the motives of essentially every regulatory body that has ever existed, wrote a letter deciding that the FDA's Mifepristone rules had procedural deficits. The man who thinks tap water is a government experiment. That guy. He's the one who the Fifth Circuit decided to side with. Mifepristone survived 25 years of clinical scrutiny. It did not survive one letter from the least medically credible health secretary in American history. The opioid epidemic, which the FDA helped create by approving OxyContin, has killed over 800,000 Americans. Those still ship. But 25 years of safety data, over 7 million patients, a mortality rate indistinguishable from zero, and a federal court has decided that the FDA got their paperwork wrong. In America, it turns out, the mail is only dangerous when women decide what's in it. Or it's spelled the other way.